Such a flattering shade on you. She nodded, murmuring that it mirrored the hue of his gaze, honeyed and bright. And that likeness was why their pairing felt effortless in a landscape where famous romances flare like fireworks and vanish just as fast. A certain duo had been quietly reshaping how affection can endure under relentless spotlights. And this account traced how a beloved pop powerhouse and football's polished champion carved out something genuine amid the clamor of celebrity. On that note, before we plunge deeper into the unfolding chatter, the host told listeners to subscribe now, keep alerts on, and stay tuned for more insider whispers. A date stood out. August 13th, when Taylor Swift stepped onto the New Heights podcast, co-hosted by Travis and Jason Kelce, and the appearance wasn't just another polished interview. It played like an unguarded window into partnership. He insisted she wouldn't label herself an athlete, that she'd never say such a thing out loud, yet he'd witnessed her regimen up close, the toll and rigor she embraced, and he called it staggering. That exchange felt tender, one star acknowledging another's relentless craft, and beneath Travis's phrasing lay a quieter recognition that he perceived the whole person behind the glitter, a woman more intricate than the stage lights suggested. To understand how the pair arrived at that easy candor, the narrative rewound swift, fresh from the triumph of an era-defining tour that wrapped in December 2024, had once more circled the globe and left it chanting. Meanwhile, Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs had soared through a season only to collide with a bruising 40-22 defeat to the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 59 that February, a loss that stung even as the world expected resilience. Across two domains, each figure stood as a standard-bearer, both atop the mountains they'd scaled. Both reminded that even giants need to exhale and that greatness still requires shelter. And after that championship heartbreak, something unexpected unfolded. Rather than sprinting back to the grind, they gravitated toward each other, opting for presence over publicity, choosing detours and laughter over a parade of carefully staged photos, and slipping away with intention. Their life, instead of becoming a montage of selfies and stage sightings, found rhythm, a steadiness that grew the more they lingered in each other's orbit, realizing their values and daily habits lined up with surprising precision. Montana's hush, Nashville's hum, New York's pulse, these weren't mere pins on a map. They became gentle canvases for a discovery that felt mutual and mature, the kind forged in quiet rooms, more than in roaring arenas. Away from lenses and chance, they were simply Taylor and Travis, learning the choreography of each other's moods, timing, and humor, the mundane rituals that outlast the noise. Imagine the details. Folded notes tucked into a carry-on pocket before a flight, a book annotated with inside jokes, a bracelet engraved with a half-remembered lyric, little offerings that signal careful listening and patient noticing. She'd slip him handwritten lines and small keepsakes that carried weight beyond price, and he matched that energy, noticing, reciprocating, and making memory into practice. It felt quaint in a digital storm, a soft rebellion against algorithms, no public proclamations required, just two people fluent in the dialect of attention and steadiness. Yet their bond did more than trade tokens. It settled into respect built from the invisible parts of their jobs. When he admired her work ethic, he wasn't merely playing the supportive partner. He spoke as a peer seasoned in discipline, comparing locker room grit to backstage ritual. He framed athletes as wired with relentless focus, saying that structure and grind drew a clear parallel to the way she prepared, practiced, and performed. And it landed because the stakes in both professions were punishing. Consider the scale she carries. 3.5-hour shows, night after night, instruments switching hands, vocals precise, moving in choreography while conversing with 50,000 sets of eyes. That's a marathon layered onto a symphony. Her art requires stamina, strategy, and recovery. He saw the rehearsals, the dressings, the vocal rest, the stretching, the metronomes, the run-throughs, the offstage silence that made the onstage roar possible, and he recognized endurance wherever it lived. And she, for her part, observed what it means to maintain elite form at 34, to endure collisions and scrutiny, to study film, lift, ice, sleep ill or well, and still deliver on Sunday, year after year. In their small pockets of time, something decisive crystallized. Two people who could have chosen anyone concluded they preferred only each other. Their hours together taught Taylor that permanence was not a fairy tale but a direction, that forever wasn't a slogan but a decision spoken twice softly as if testing the weight of the word before letting it settle. In an environment that rewards the fleeting, that word felt heavier than headlines. Yet when ambition syncs with understanding, eternity doesn't seem exaggerated, it feels plausible. People close to them spoke plainly, saying marriage and children rose on the horizon not as rumors, but as intentions plotted after careful thought. And still, commitments to craft remained, an ordering of priorities that felt fitting for them. Personal life on the rise, professional life still exacting its price. She readied her 12th studio album, titled The Life of a Showgirl, slated for October 3rd, and fans braced for new pages in her creative diary to be tuned up for a 13th NFL season, with a September 5th kickoff against the Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the calendar inked with travel, film study, and the chase for another ring. Two arcs peaking at once, their energy not asked to shrink but encouraged to aim higher, each acting as advocate and anchor for the other, proof that love can enhance, not eclipse. Before a pivotal lesson arrived, the narrator interjected, "Quick subscribe if you're stunned by how quietly this evolved. The culture often craves theatrics, but their union offered a counterpoint, a calm, a dependable presence that taught how lasting bonds may sound less like symbols and more like steady drumbeats. When shared values align with a matched tempo of work and rest, the relationship no longer feels like a puzzle to solve. It becomes a practice sustained by intentional choices. Timing mattered. They met at a season in life when self-sufficiency wasn't a shield but a baseline, when confidence did not require applause, and when vulnerability looked like a strength rather than a risk-averse bargain. As the episodes of their journey unspooled, the rare spectacle was the absence of spectacle. Two magnets clicking into place. Fitting not by accident but by patience, they didn't simply mesh, they complemented each other, the way harmony warms a melody, each sharpening the other's best parts. Their romance, far from idle rumor, served as a case study of excellence carried from stage and field into the realm of care, where attention to detail becomes a love language and consistency becomes devotion. Sometimes the most dazzling outcomes are rooted in old, steady ingredients, mutual respect, aligned priorities, and the soft certainty of recognizing your person on an ordinary afternoon. Stay subscribed for the next cup of tea, the voice said, and watch as songs and victories weave together into the sort of chapter future storytellers might revisit. Music, then the scene slid back to the studio moment when Travis's voice softened as he described her endurance, a pivot that felt equal parts admiration and relief, as if he'd long wanted to share what the public often misreads. He observed how people conflate sparkle with ease, forgetting the sweat it takes to look effortless, and by naming the strain he granted dignity to every rehearsal. Nobody applauds that he hinted at rituals, taped ankles for dancers' spins, warm-ups timed to the minute, breathing patterns synced with lighting cues, hydration tracked like a science, and quiet after-parties replaced by humidifiers and tea. For someone raised in locker rooms, such systems felt familiar. Film sessions mirrored sound checks, playbooks echoed set lists, and pressure looked identical whatever the uniform. For her, the parallel ran the other way. Offensive. Schemes resembled choreography, cadence and timing decided outcomes. Chemistry was rehearsed until it felt like instinct. Those parallels became bridge work between them, turning potential misunderstandings into areas of fluency. When you've lived under scrutiny, you learn that trust often hides in the small yes. Answering texts on flights, sharing location on travel days, and leaving the first 5 minutes of every reunion agenda free to breathe together. Montana's stillness taught them how to be quiet without anxiety. Nashville offered them community that understood songwriting's odd hours and the solitude necessary for deep thinking. New York supplied anonymity within the crowd, a paradoxical privacy that kept them humble and spontaneous. Suitcases became familiar furniture. Airports felt like long hallways leading not just to gigs but to each other, and the contents of a carry-on told stories. The notebook with dog-eared pages, the lucky coin, the worn hoodie that smelled faintly of cologne. When disagreements surfaced, they practiced the tools their careers had drilled into them. Debrief, name the miss, adjust the next run-through, respect the clock, and keep the goal visible. They traded notes like professionals. She'd offer a lyric about boundaries. He'd counter with a plan for better calendar coordination. Both signed off, both kept promises. On days when exhaustion undercut patience, they called timeouts, opting for a walk, a shared coffee, or a joke one of them could deliver without fail. In public, they guarded specifics.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.